In this experiment, we're going to use a spaghetti bridge to explore proportional relationships. For this experiment, we're going to need several pieces of spaghetti, some pennies to use as weight, a cup with a string through it so that we can suspend it from our bridge, and we're going to need either 2 chairs or 2 tables to make the gap that where we're going to build our bridge. Here's my setup for this experiment. I have my spaghetti bridge with the cup. I also have a bowl underneath to catch the cup when the spaghetti breaks, and then I have some weights to hold the spaghetti in place. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to gently place pennies in the cup until the bridge breaks. It's 1, 2. Well, the bridge broke. That was 43. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pick up my pennies and I'm going to put another piece, 2 strands of spaghetti, and I'm going to see how many pennies it takes before it breaks. I conducted this experiment using different numbers of strands of spaghetti to make my spaghetti bridge, and here's my data table. Next, it's hard to see what the data represents or what it means, so I'm going to draw a graph. And I realize that the number of pennies depends on the number of strands of spaghetti. So I'm going to put the strands of spaghetti along the x-axis as my independent variable, and the number of pennies as my dependent variable along the y-axis. Here's my graph showing the data that's in my data table, and you can see that the points appear to lie in more or less a straight line, suggesting there's a very strong correlation between the number of strands of spaghetti and the number of pennies that are needed in order to break the bridge. Next, I'm going to use a ruler to draw in my trend line, and I realize that it should go through the point 0, 0, because it says when we have no strands of spaghetti, we'll have no pennies. So that'll give me a proportional relationship. So here's my trend line, and it's very close to my data points. And I drew it in so it goes through the point 0, 0. Now what I'm going to look for is a place where the trend line crosses the corners of my graph, so my points will be integers, and I'm going to see if I can determine the slope. So when I look at this, I see there's a place here, where the number of pennies is 140, and then I can go up to where the number of pennies is 190. So that's a difference of 50 pennies. And I'm going over 2 squares, which represents 1 strand of spaghetti. So my slope from my trend line is 50 pennies per 1 strand. Next, I'm going to use the calculator. I'm going to enter my data points in the calculator to see how the graph or the slope of my line of best fit compares to my trend line. And when I did that, I came up with this equation right here, where I have A, which is the slope, as 53.53, or roughly 54 pennies, and B is 1.14, or roughly 1 penny, when the number of strands of spaghetti is 0, then according to my line of best fit, it would hold 1 penny. So that's pretty close to 0, which is what we know should be occurring. And that's what I have for this experiment.